You're stuck between a rock and hard place, finishing the novel and allowing yourself to get the words down and getting to that first done draft. It's the momentum needed, though, to get there. In this episode, we'll explore some tools I'm using to get to the beloved first draft. Hello, I am Janetta Shorter, the teller of tales that heal, and I am so happy that you decided to join me today in the 9th episode. So, as I am at the almost finished point to getting to my first draft of my new novel, That Day in August, that's coming this summer, I'm finding that getting to that space, or getting to that when I go the end for the first draft, it takes motivation. It's taking me to have to keep the momentum up, right? So when you first start your novel, you're gung-ho, words are coming, chapters are coming, and then you get to that middle point where you're bridging the beginning, you're trying to get to the end, but you're really trying to get to the end because, of course, we know when we write out, when you write a novel, that's not the end. You don't just publish it, right? It has to go to the next phase. So as I am trying to get to that next phase, there's some things that I've had to take into consideration to continue to allow the continuity of my creativity to flow, to set my mindset, but also to be gentle with myself as I'm trying to get to the first draft. So just want to talk today about some great techniques that you can use that I found useful in my own process that I think you should think about, adding to your own process in writing. So one of the first things I would say that I've done is, allowing myself to play, right? I will go into Canva and just, even if it's not the cover page I'm going to use, I will allow myself to just go into Canva and play. It allows me to create a book cover, just a makeshift book cover. It allows me to play with colors. It allows me to think about some of the imagery that I wrote about in the novel. And I give myself, maybe an hour, hour and a half, not too serious. Sometimes I brush up, across a cover that I'm like, ooh, I may add that as I create my own covers. But it allows me to play and really get those juices going. The colors, the fonts, the imagery of what my novel talks about. So give yourself a chance to go into Canva and just play around with colors and play around with things, because this is the thing, like, creativity comes out of play. And if you take the play out of the creative process, you're going to find that continuing that momentum becomes harder and harder. One of the other things that I've done is I will watch movies or read books that, gives me gives me the dialogue, right? That I'm the energy of the dialogue that I'm looking for. So like right now, I've watched Blackish, all 8 seasons over the last 3 weeks. For me, it's not that my story is about my, upcoming novels is about Blackish and the themes of Blackish, but it's the banter, it's the camaraderie of the characters, the closeness of the characters, it's the quick banter, the quick give and take that each of the characters give to one another, and it's that sort of je ne sais quoi, or this energy that I'm looking to incorporate into my novel. So, find that show that like it may be your favorite, and it's your favorite for a reason. I have a few, like when I was writing Magnolias Bloom in May, I love watching Queen Sugar, right? Because it was it was that sort of that southern, that mysterious, that Black family, like it was all of that sort of banter that really, or not banter, but that energy that I wanted to pull into that novel, and even some of the imagery, right? Also, when I was writing In the Next Lifetime, I watched Scandal for some reason, but I needed to watch, it was that movie, or that particular show. I watched it incessantly because there were parts of it. I love the way Shonda Rhimes was able to weave the characters' lives one into another. So sometimes, story books or shows or movies will help to impact, or help to sort of influence or release your own creative juices in your novel. For some books that I read, like when I was writing Magnolia's Bloom in May, I read Gloria Naylor's Mama Day. Like that was an amazing book to read that helped me to pull into my imagery and the mystique and the spirituality that Magnolia's Bloom in May really lauds and is a backdrop for the novel. For In the Next Lifetime, I read and even now with That Day in August, I'm reading Kennedy Ryan's Can't Get Enough, and Dale Sanding's The Cursed House. For different reasons, I love the way, because my novel That Day in August is a contemporary romance, but it also adds this mystery and this spirituality to all of my books. Do that, but I guess my point is, find books too that really help to spur on your creativity. Now, Walter Mosley, who has written so many books, like you can't even, I want to say he's written about 30 plus books. It may be more by now, but he talked about I think he personally does not read any novels when he's writing because he wants to keep his voice pure. And so I would just say, these are tools, right, to help spur and help pull up your own creativity. So if you find that it starts to cloud your voice or influence you too much, you could pull back a little bit, but it's just a tool and a technique for you to pull up your own creativity and to keep your momentum going as you get to that first draft. So last week, as I was writing, I saw that I was on like page 217, and I'm like, okay, what is happening? And it felt like getting to that space of the end was just getting longer and longer, right? So I was like, okay, something has to give. So what I found that I had to do is I had to create a timeline. And, so I knew I had to calculate, okay, how many chapters do you need to write before you can say, you know what, this is the end? And I calculated about 12 chapters, but it took me like really going through and giving myself the time to go, okay, this scene and then this scene and then this scene, like really sketching those out. Because from my other videos, I have a couple other videos that where I'm talking about That Day in August, the novel that I'm writing now. And, I pantsed the first half of the novel until I hit about chapter 20 where I was like, okay, I really have to start the plot now, because the novel was going every which way. And though that was fun, I was like, I'm never going to get finished. So one thing you may want to incorporate is putting together a timeline. And so some things to think about is, how much time do you really have to write during the week? I have about an hour a day or so, an hour to 2 hours to write per day. So, think about like, when can you actually put butt in chair, words on page, where you can spend dedicated time to write? No interruptions, no one's calling you. No, what does that look like? Also think about, when do you want to publish? Like, you may have to work backwards and think about, okay, I know for me, I want to publish my novel in August. So working backwards from August to currently March, I was able to really, really define the beats that I need to hit to get me to that publishing deadline for August. Another thing that you may want to consider is, what matters to you in your writing session. For me at this point, because I have defined between 12 and 15 chapters that I need to have done so that I can get to the first draft and begin the next process of editing, is, I really need to write at least 3 to 4 chapters a week. And I have sort of defined that I can write a chapter within like an hour and a half. I've just kind of noticed that about myself. So think about, what is it going to take? What matters to you? Is it words on page? Is it chapters in the week? Is it the amount of time you spend writing? So really define what's the most important to you to get you to that first draft. It is really important during this time that you manage your energy, and you really have to know and keep a pulse on your energy. You don't want to get into a place where this thing of writing, which is pleasurable, becomes stressful, right? I mean, it's stressful enough if you put your hand to the plow and you're like, I'm going to write this novel. But if your energy centers are off, then it's going to be that much harder to get to that finished draft point. So for me, last week I was thinking at 4 o'clock in the morning. It's when I do my best thinking, which I do my best thinking there. I decided that I was going to do my writing in the morning. I was going to set my alarm clock for 5 in the morning to come and sit and write, which may mean that I need to get into bed by 9 or 10 o'clock. I need to make sure that my clothes are out for the next day, because after I finish my writing session, I may have a chance to do a little bit of yoga or whatever, but I got to get in the shower and I have to get my clothes on and I have to get to work. So thinking about how can you manage your energy best? I know that when I get back home from work, it is a challenge for me to come home and write. I had to really, really be honest. And, have I done it? Yes. Have I made it sexy? Yes. But it is still a challenge. So, understanding my energy, what my energy needs. I want to go to the gym. I want to maybe go to a dance class. I may want to sit and sit in my sauna. But if I'm trying to write and do all those things, by the time I sit down at my desk, I am tired. So understanding what you need energy-wise is going to be important. The other thing you have to assess, like, what are you willing to sacrifice, right? So for me, what happens and has happened so many times, I could sit and be writing, a friend calls, and the next thing I know, 15 minutes has passed, 30 minutes has passed, 45 minutes has passed, an hour has passed. The next thing I know, it's an hour and 15. Okay, if the conversation gets really good, I might get a glass of wine or two. Do you really think I'm going to be trying to write? After that, I can't even write really good because my mind is on what my friend talked about, and now it's 2 hours later. So you may have to make sacrifices. So, it may include telling friends, hey, or family, hey, I'm on deadline. You may have to put that phone on do not disturb. You may have to see that call and be like, I can't do it right now. Or you may have to, like I said, let everybody know or set a timeline. Okay, I'm going to give this call 30 minutes. It may have to be, if the person doesn't call back, it's not an emergency. But, you have to know, you have to be willing to sacrifice some things. It may be a particular event you won't go to because you're trying to get to that first draft. I think the last thing is like, what's your non-negotiables, right? Like for me, I need to at least write an hour, at least an hour a day, especially during the week. On the weekend, I can do a little bit more, but then the weekend too, I'm trying to do laundry. I'm trying to clean the house. Might want to cook some. I may have things to do. So, you got to figure out what, no matter what, you're going to write this amount or this amount of time during this week or every other day, but what is, define your non-negotiables. It's so important that you manage your energy to get you to your goal. It's a dreary day here in Chicago. It's 60 degrees, which is great, but it's dreary. So hence the sexy lighting. And I kind of like it like this. You see, I got my little candle in the background and all of that. But the next thing I would say is manage your mindset, right? You have your deadline in mind, and that's good, but be graceful with yourself. Like this morning, I had every intent on getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning to do this recording because, 5 is the best time for me, but I allowed myself to 8, to move slow, to test lighting. So, allow yourself space and grace as you're trying to get to that first draft. Step away when you need to. Last week, I didn't write every day. I did a good 1,300 words one day, right? But then as I was writing, I recognized that I needed to step away so that I can figure out where I was going. So what I did, and this is another technique you can use, I used my voice recorder and I just spoke about where I needed to go. And as a result of that, I mapped out the rest of the book. I was able to, sort of give myself a blurb for each chapter just so that I have a path forward. I also was able to, plot or kind of plan past that with the editing and the beta readers and the ARC readers and with all the rest of the steps. I got to buy an ISBN for the book. I was able to plot the rest of it. So sometimes stepping away is really good because at times you could be sort of in the weeds of writing, and coming away from it to get a wider perspective really, really does help so that you can go back in it. But this time when you go back in it, you have direction. I think the other thing I would say is rest. If you need to take a nap, if you need to, take a step away and read a magazine, or take some time away and read a book, or just to kind of just step away when you need to, take a nap when you need to, close your eyes, color, take a walk, but do what you need to do to keep your mind in the process, in the writing of it, in the writing of your novel, to keep your mind clear so that you're not overwhelming yourself. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a comment below and either say first draft or leave a stack of books emoji if this has really helped you. As you go forward, wherever you are, either if you're concepting your next novel or first novel, or you are in the middle like I am, or you're nearing the end, I encourage you to set your strategy, set your boundaries, but also give yourself grace in the process. I promise you, you are going to hit that first draft deadline, but you're going to hit it with grace, and you're going to hit it with the momentum to carry you through the rest of the process. Cannot wait to see you again. Have an amazing day. Subscribe if you liked it. Come back again. See you soon. Bye.